Efforts to protect themselves have become even more difficult and financially burdensome. Well, those were your 6 a.m. news headlines. We'll have another news update at the top of the hour right here on CNC3 and the TBC Radio Network.
Morning Brew is brought to you by Omega XL. Live long, stay strong.
Welcome to the Morning Brew, everyone. I'm Ryan Badechu, sitting in for Jason Williams just for today. Always happy to be in your company. It's a rainy day across Trinidad, parts of Trinidad, many parts of Trinidad, particularly along the east-west corridor, as well as central headed into Port of Spain. So if you're on the roads this morning, please be safe. Take your time. You may have to leave a little bit earlier because as it ticks towards 7 o'clock, the traffic is going to increase across parts of Trinidad and possibly even Tobago as well. So we urge you to be cautious on the roadways. This morning we have a lot for you, including a very important interview with Zahir Ali from the Trinidad and Tobago Police Service, the legal officer there. And later on in the program, Ian Wason comes up with the Morning Shot, our flagship sports program on the Morning Brew. So lots to unpack over the next 2 hours, lots for you to see as well. Take us along with you on Facebook as well. We're live streaming on Facebook. Always happy to be in your company. Let's bring up the front page of the TNT Guardian newspaper, where we're following a major story unfolding when it comes to a suspect being arrested in a plot to kill the attorneys of those held at Tetron Barracks. Major developments over the last 24 hours with the plot suspect held and the police commissioner Alistair Guevara confirming that the two attorneys have been briefed regarding the threat and were advised on what security measures they should adopt. Contacted yesterday, Guevara said law enforcement and intelligence of agencies continue to treat those threats with utmost seriousness. And interestingly, he said that the suspect was held with what the Trinidad and Tobago Police Service terms a, quote, sophisticated weapon aimed at killing the defense attorneys of some of the inmates at the Tetron Barracks, some of the inmates being held at Tetron Barracks, according to the report from Annalisa Paul. They are growing frustrated with their attorneys not being able to move them out of Guantanamo Bay. That's where they're being held at the moment at Tetron Barracks, and back to the maximum security prison. And if absolutely nothing else, this state of emergency that has been declared has brought a much clearer picture into how the depth at which this crime fight is happening in Trinidad and Tobago. Even if the Trinidad and Tobago Police Service and the prison service are not successful, or even if they don't declare success at the end of this state of emergency, though the police commissioner is saying that the threat at this state of emergency, which caused this state of emergency, has been, quote, neutralized. That's his words, Alistair Guevara. But even if this SOE is not a success, I think the nation, looking at everything that has happened since then, can seriously say that we have a huge task on our hands in arresting this crime situation. And it also shows in many ways that it's not really a crime fight that's on the outside. Again, this state of emergency, for those of us who may not have had a clear picture of it, now have a clear picture of the size of the task facing us from behind the walls of the maximum security prison. This has been a lot to digest since the start of the state of emergency. This has been a lot for a lot of people who have been in the dark. a lot of people who may not have been following it, a lot of people who have been confused and baffled as to how governments, both past and present, have struggled to deal with the crime situation. It's been a moment of clarity in our crime fight as a country to fully understand the threat that is emanating behind the walls of the maximum security prison. If nothing else, as I have said, if nothing else, the country today has a much clearer picture of what it is facing than any other time before this start of the state of emergency. Let's also have a look at the back page of the TNT Guardian newspaper and follow what's happening in sport. As I mentioned, Ian Wason comes up at the bottom of 7:30 for the morning shot. Trinidad and Tobago under 15 footballers. They win again in the CONCACAF Championship, and they are through to the next round of this CONCACAF Championship. We want to take this opportunity to wish them well. They arrived pretty late at the tournament, and they were able to sneak in a first win and then a second win. Jassi Marique was saying that even though they might have been a little bit jet-lagged, they still put on very good performances, so we want to continue wishing them the best of luck. The West Indies cricket team is also in Trinidad ahead of their 3-match T20 international series against Pakistan that bowls off tomorrow night at the Brian Lara Cricket Academy. They have named their West Indies T20 international squad. Just reading through the TNT Guardian newspaper, seeing names like Shea Hope being the captain, Jules Andrew is in there, Jediah Blades, Casey Carty, Roston Chase, Matthew Ford, Justin Greaves, Amir Jangu, who's from Trinidad and Tobago, is in there as well, Shamar Joseph, Brandon King, Evan Lewis, Gudakesh Moti, Shafane Rutherford, Jaden Seals, and Romario Shepherd. A mixture of experience and youth within that West Indies T20 international squad. We wish them the best of luck, and we hope that they can pull off some victories in the first T20 international that begins tomorrow at the Brian Lara Cricket Academy. Should be an interesting series against the Pakistan team that is often inconsistent but quite strong as well. Either of these teams can show up on its day. Let's also have a look at the brief pages as well. Bottom of the brief page, the Trinidad and Tobago Blind Welfare Association is hoping that the free glucose monitoring system that the Ministry of Health is proposing in the upcoming budget will be also offered to blind and visually impaired people. The Minister of Health did respond to Guardian Media in this story, and he said that he acknowledges the unique challenges being faced by the blind and visually impaired community in managing chronic conditions such as diabetes, and the Ministry of Health is committing to a healthcare system that is inclusive. And he also said that the Blind Welfare Association reached out to his ministry for a meeting with the Minister of Health, Dr. Lakram Bodo. Dr. Lakram Bodo told Guardian Media yesterday that he is willing to meet with the Blind Welfare Association. In fact, he envisages that that meeting will happen very near into the future, his words. Also on the brief pages as well, Urupuch residents are pleading for police patrols across their community. There was a police consultation on your Stand Your Ground legislation. I should rather say not a police consultation, that would be incorrect, but rather an Urupuch East consultation held by a Member of Parliament for the area, Dr. Rudal Munilal. That consultation happened on Tuesday evening, and it threw up some very interesting perspectives, on one of which we'll be talking with Zahir Ali about from the TTPS a little bit later on in the program. The issue of domestic violence when it comes to Stand Your Ground. And you know, while those present in Urupuch East sought to isolate both issues, I don't think it's very easy to isolate both, or almost impossible to isolate domestic violence and Stand Your Ground legislation. Because within the confines of a home, if there is the issue of domestic violence that arises, as has arisen across so many homes in Trinidad and Tobago over the last 2 decades, and there is a gun in that home, then how do you separate? How is it possible to separate one person protecting themselves, be it man or woman, protecting themselves from their partner with having a domestic, a home invasion situation. You have a gun in your home, and how you use that gun will always be the subject of scrutiny, whether it is through domestic violence or whether it is through home invasion. We'll be talking to Zahir Alia, like I said, a little bit later on this developing but very important issue as well. But coming up after the break, we'll be discussing with Anthony Wilson, the Business Guardian newspaper. The issue of electricity rates comes up once again, not only on this program, but in national conversation. And time again, from experts within the industry, within the energy sector, to business correspondents writing these articles in the Business Guardian, who will pay for the electricity rate? Trinidad and Tobago enjoys some of the best electricity rates there is across the world. Perhaps even the other places that you can call include places like Suriname, another oil and gas-based economy that enjoys pretty decent electricity rates. But then you have to go to places in the Middle East, oil-rich nations within the Middle East like Saudi Arabia, that have and offer generous electricity rates to their customers. But the challenge here in Trinidad and Tobago is that every time we see lights stay on in buildings and rooms that are not in occupancy, natural gas in Trinidad and Tobago is not, there is not an abundance of natural gas. And that natural gas and Trinidad and Tobago electricity rates are being heavily subsidized here in Trinidad and Tobago. When we come back, Anthony Wilson will talk us through who is paying this hefty bill when it comes to your electricity, and when and where do we move to a place of you actually paying what is more realistic for your electricity bill. That's next on The Morning Brew.
Mom, Dad, this is Trevor.
Hi. He's no Kieran. Back up.
Swing? That's why he crossed the road.
It was funny when Kieran said it.
Ooh, who could that be?
We're like the parents who don't miss your ex.
I can't believe Kieran is in the neighborhood.
CG United. Good like that.
The biggest annual dancehall concert is back.
Yo, Trinidad.
Magnum Explosion. Summer's Day. We head to the Queen's Park Savannah Saturday, August 16th with a brand new cast of international superstars. Lady Lava, Baker, Amani, 450, Molly Don, Skilly Bang. Tickets available at frontlineticketing.com. Cache stores nationwide. Extra Food Supermarkets. Ultimate Car Care St. Augustine. Big Life Apparel Store. New Wave Stores. Fifth Street Market, Ariapita Avenue. Marco Polo, Cipriani Boulevard. 519 Restaurant C3 Center. Fitz by Britt St. James. And P2 Lust Auto, Lady Young Road.
There's something here for everyone, from baby to adult. Anything you need, it is right here at Food Basket Super 99.
Food Basket Super 99, affordable and trendy. Food Basket Super 99 Arima, where fashion meets affordability.
Magical Expressions Limited is the largest local importer and distributor of fresh cut stems, offering the widest range of beautiful flowers at the most affordable prices. Call us today at 701-6488, 701-6680, 728-6786, or visit our website to order.
There is a great misconception that industry experts and even those within the media fraternity, particularly working with the business side of newspapers, have long tried to negate and try to raise awareness about and edify the public of Trinidad and Tobago about. Sometimes it's been unsuccessful, but in most cases they have had a level of success. And that is, who pays the electricity rate, the real electricity rate in this country? Because for residential customers in this country, they enjoy very generous electricity rates. However, the electricity rates in this country have been heavily subsidized for decades. It is the lead story in today's Business Guardian newspaper. Someone must pay consequences to no electricity rate hike. Anthony Wilson and his team explore what those consequences are. Gisha Kaulesa Alonso is the author of this story. Anthony, welcome back to the program. Always happy to have you.
Good morning, Ryan. Good morning to the Morning Brew viewers and listeners.
You know,
Interesting
Anthony,
topic.
Yeah, no. This here is a topic that I have always been very interested in, and I think it's an important topic that will simply not go away anytime soon. And I'm really glad that Gisha was able to tackle this topic. Again, it's a conversation that we keep having over and over, but it's also a conversation we need to keep having over and over.
Yes. Yeah, agreed. I'm interested in finding out what is your electricity bill once every 2 months?
That, I rent, so it's a little bit difficult to say what that is. But for the average consumer, how much is it?
I have no idea. I can tell you my last bill was $123.
Right. That's very generous, Anthony. That is almost next to nothing.
Yes, and I certainly think that I can pay more for the electricity that I use. Now, at $123, it's obvious I don't use a lot of electricity, but I think people like me and residential customers like myself who can afford to pay should be made to pay more for electricity. I think the arrangement that is in place is that residential customers who can afford to pay more for electricity, I think this goes back to the RIC, Regulated Industries Commission recommendations. Residential customers who can afford to pay more should pay more. And the residential customers who cannot afford to pay more should continue to receive the subsidy. But, so the issue is, why should a customer like me, who can afford to pay more, not pay more?
But it also,
and I think,
but you know, there's an interesting perspective to this, and this is not me. This is me having done research on this very topic a couple years back. You know, there's this very interesting perspective, and I believe it's Dr. Dax Driver, who you know very well, shared it with me, that it's not really the lower income households that are using the most electricity, because they can't afford a heating pool. They don't have air conditions in their home. It's really the upper middle income, the higher income households that are really using a lot more electricity. So blaming those at the lower end of the income pool really is unfair and unjustified.
Yeah, so yes, I agree with that. I think one of the things that came out of the RIC consultations on this issue is that there was not a lot of clarity on exactly who it is uses electricity. As you said, there's a kind of an assumption that people at higher income levels use more electricity. And I think that is no doubt true, but I think there needs to be a lot more specificity on exactly who are the customers and where they live, customers that are using more electricity. Yeah.
And
who can afford to pay more for the electricity.
Yeah. Were you a little bit surprised by the Public Utilities Minister Barry Padarat's comments, saying that he intended to take a proposal to Cabinet to reject the recommendation of the RIC to increase electricity rate for commercial and residential customers by 15 to 64% and 37 to 51% respectively last Thursday?
Not surprised at all. Not surprised at all, because the previous administration, although they did not say that they were going to reject the RIC recommendations for electricity rate increases, in effect did so by not implementing the rate increases. I believe those rate increases were announced in October 2023. The previous administration of the People's National Movement had those recommendations in hand and was simply not prepared to implement those recommendations.
That's a very, very difficult political decision, as you and I know.
It is, but if the rate increase recommendations only apply to people who can afford, how does it become a difficult decision? I think the challenge would be for the commercial customers, because there is a point of view that if the commercial customers pay more for electricity, they will pass on some or all of that increase to the people who come to purchase their groceries or go to the mall to buy clothes and so on, or buy food in restaurants. And I think one thing that both governments, both political parties, both of our main political parties are very conscious of is the impact of higher prices in the economy on the residents of the economy. But I maintain that those who can pay more should pay more.
Either way, and this is my last comments on this particular topic, because I do want to, you have a lot to read in today's Business Guardian newspaper, and I do want to look at a couple other stories. We are approaching, whether it is slowly or quickly, we are approaching that juncture where we have to make it, well, the decision is already going to be made. The rates simply cannot stay the same because of the natural gas supply in this country. And we are approaching that juncture, and at some point, the politicians and the public will have to come face to face with the reality of where we are at when it comes to our natural gas supply and how that affects the electricity supply in this country. Anyway, let's move on to page 3 of the Business Guardian this morning, Anthony, and you ask a very important question. Can the government do anything for Trinidad and Tobago stocks? You yourself would have wrote this story. Tell me about it.
Yeah. The underlying basis of the commentary is that the Trinidad and Tobago stock market has been in the doldrums for 3 years and is currently now in the doldrums. In other words, stock prices of shares listed on the Trinidad and Tobago Stock Exchange have been down, going on 4 years now. Been down by double digits for the last 3 years, and are down by single digits in this, the 4th year. So if you have a situation in which a stock market is down for 3 years and 7 months, that is going to discourage individuals and institutions from investing in local stocks. And I personally think that that is a bad thing, and that if the government can intervene to reverse that situation, it should. And I have 3 or 4 ideas of how the government can intervene in the stock market to reverse the doldrums that Trinidad and Tobago stocks have been in for 3 years and 7 months. And I think one of the ideas that is not in the piece is that the government's investment companies, which should be National Enterprises Limited, NGL, and the National Investment Fund, should be going into the stock market and buying stocks on a judicious basis, so that the government institutions are leading in trying to reverse the doldrums that the TNT stock market is in.
Anthony Wilson, always appreciate you on the Morning Brew program. Lots to read in today's Business Guardian newspaper. We appreciate your time.
Thanks, Ryan.
Anthony Wilson, the business consultant at Guardian Media, talking to us on the Morning Brew. Interesting story on BG page 4 as well, with Rafael John Lal visiting Venezuela over the last week as part of a cohort of 50 journalists from around the world going to some non-energy facilities in Venezuela, and he gives his perspective. And he also writes some stories there on how Venezuela is rebuilding. According to John's story, the Venezuela is actually growing again. So, you know, we've seen the dip in Venezuela economy about 10 years ago when the exodus started and the migrant crisis came seeping into Trinidad and Tobago's borders. But now Rafael is actually reporting from Venezuela that the economy is growing again. Pick up a copy of the TNT Guardian newspaper. Stay with us, because when we come back, Zahir Ali joins us for the Police and News segment on the Morning Brew.
San Fernando, get ready. The Roadie one-man show is coming to the Southland. Sunday, the 17th of August at Sapa. Tickets available at all K-Squared locations. At Police by the Park, Southern Food Basket, Coffee Street, and San Fernando. Sapa box office from the 14th of August, and Island Eat tickets online. For more information and box office inquiries, call 682-0467 or 683-4843. This show is strictly 18 years and over. The Roadie one-man show is heading to the Southland.
Some nights call for more than just a slice. At Rizzoni's, we serve pizza the way it was meant to be. Brick-fired, bold, and brought out fresh, again and again. This is all you can eat, Rizzoni style, where the pizzas come to you. Crisp crusts, rich sauce, melty cheese, every round with new toppings, new flavors, and no limit. Every Friday from 4 p.m. Join us at Movie Town, Fiesta Plaza, Port of Spain, or C3 Movie Town, San Fernando. So go ahead, stay for that next slice. We'll keep them coming.
Built to Last has a massive sale on roofing materials, including standing seam. Invest in durable roofing sheets at unbeatable prices. Choose our supply and installation package and enjoy huge savings on your roof. Quality materials, quality prices, quality workmanship. Our name says it all. Built to Last, for roofing that is built to last. We will not be beaten on price. Enjoy free delivery and free roll forming on standing seam and guttering on site. Call us now, 355-7703.
Attention all bakers, doubles vendors, and roti makers. Try our high-quality bromate-free, all-purpose, and whole wheat flour. Low price and conveniently packaged in 2 pounds, 2 kg, 10 kg, and 25 kg bags. For wholesale and retail prices, contact Shiklisho Limited at 665-3336 or 480-8715 or visit us at Warrenville, Canoopia. Shiklisho Limited, quality you can trust.
Excuse me, आपने इन्हें कहीं देखा है?
हाँ मैम, ये अभी आए थे और 302 रूम पूछ रहे थे।
302।
Commissioner of Police Alistair Guevara says that the threat that ultimately led to the state of emergency has been neutralized. I have with me Acting Superintendent Zahir Ali on the program with us this morning. He's TTPS's legal officer. Welcome to the program, Mr. Ali, and thank you very much for being here.
Well, it's a pleasure to be here as well, Ryan, and good morning to all our viewers and listeners. And just, I see you have promoted me to Acting Superintendent, Acting Sergeant. That's all right.
My apologies. Mr. Guevara is going to be very disappointed in me.
That's all right.
But let's start with the state of emergency. We continue in a state of emergency as a country. The commissioner has said that the threat has been neutralized. What can the country expect now that he has said that the threat that ultimately led to this country being under an SOE has been neutralized?
How I'll respond to that, Ryan, at the point of the declaration of the state of emergency, the criminal syndicates and gangs coming together did in fact pose a serious threat to Trinidad and Tobago in terms of what their intended activities were. And the fact that there has been an intervention by law enforcement to actually remove persons from a state of comfort, if I should say that, in order to give law enforcement the opportunity to investigate, the neutralizing of the threat is in that particular context. It doesn't dismiss the fact that inquiries are being conducted expeditiously to gather evidence to be able to prosecute persons with reference to that those plans to commit acts of criminality.
The intelligence suggests that a lot of the members of these gangs who have been plotting, let's have a look at the front page of the TNT Guardian newspaper, and that's one such instance this morning. The intelligence suggests that the police service has been making inroads into breaking up these plots, so to speak. Do you see medium-term benefits, short-term benefits to this minor successes, perhaps you might call it major successes, that the TTPS has had at the start of this SOE?
Well, most certainly, Ryan, the fact that we have brought the matter under control, that in itself is an immediate success. And prior to the intervention of the law enforcement agencies, you would have seen reports of kidnapping. You'd have seen reports of consistent extortion. Not that these offenses are not being committed still, but you're seeing a reduction in terms of the activities of these criminal gangs. So yes, there is an immediate reduction. Yes, we have some level of control, but we are fully aware that it has to be a sustained effort in order to really eradicate and really disrupt and dismantle these criminal gangs.
I'm really glad that you mentioned a sustainable effort. That's a real key word that you used there, because if we're going to have any long-term success, it has to be over a sustained period of time. One of the challenges, well, the great challenge, and it's something that I've often thought about since this state of emergency has been instituted, Mr. Ali. The challenge in this country has been the illegal inflow of weapons, be it through customs, be it through marine borders, you name it. We have an influx of illegal weapons making its way into our country. And anyone really who wants a weapon in that regard and who has the contacts can have that weapon. That's not something, I mean, maybe you can, but the state of emergency really has been breaking up the networks of criminal gangs. But that particular issue of the influx of illegal weapons, be it through legal ports of entry or illegal ports of entry, might you say that I'm correct, that if we do not address and arrest that matter, then crime, those petty crimes that we see in home invasions and holding up grocery stores, etc., those things will not be unabated?
Excellent question, Ryan. And I'm happy that you're linking it now beyond the boundaries of Trinidad and Tobago and looking at it from not only a national context.
Well, we don't manufacture guns, Mr. Ali. We don't. So it has to be coming from somewhere else.
Correct. And I'm happy that you're now bringing this transnational context into the discussion. And that would call immediately for the strengthening of units like the transnational crime unit, transnational organized crime unit, to be able to look at transnational crime with the importation. And may I say, if you look at the emergency regulations in the schedule, you'll see that we are not only looking at matters prejudicial to public safety and security, but even the defense of Trinidad and Tobago. And, in that context, the transnational organized crime unit, why you are seeing the orthodox, if I should say that, law enforcement, the various units, specialist section, from a local context, we need now to be looking at the Transnational Crime Unit, the Strategic Services Agency. So other agencies must get involved to be able to deal with it both from a local jurisdiction and from a transnational context.
Because my point is, if we can deal with the state of emergency, we can crack the gangs open and dismantle them. But if we don't deal with that influx of those weapons coming in, it has the potential to collapse everything that is being done under the state of emergency. Am I right?
And most certainly, again, Ryan, and when we overheard about the choice of weapon being firearms, and when we speak about firearms, we are seeing prohibited weapons, which is automatic firearms, rifles, 7.62 caliber ammunition. So you are very, very right in terms of if we are speaking about disrupting and dismantling, it must be also disarming these criminal gangs so they do not have the capacity, because we know that they rely on the firepower to have their strength in a local context, even from a transnational context. So the disruption and the dismantling must also be directed to disarming them. So a great question this morning, and I really hope that the other agencies external to the TTPS also recognize the importance of making their contribution during the state of emergency.
We have seen reports that there may be a new SSA director on the helm. What reports have you gotten? Because you are saying this morning that different arms of the national security instrument, such as SSA, really ought to be playing its role. Do you have an update for us? Have you heard anything about the SSA becoming a major part of this crime fight?
Well, from experience, Ryan, the SSA, has always been, a stakeholder around the table. But, what I'm asking for is a deeper appreciation, a deeper contribution towards law enforcement efforts, because it's a very sensitive area, so I cannot speak to the depth that I would like to speak, but the SSA has a major role to play, and it must be playing that role in partnership with the Trinidad and Tobago Police Service to be able to have our best effort to deal with crime and criminality.
One of the concerns post last SOE is the medium-term to long-term benefits of that SOE.
Yes.
And whether that SOE was a success or not is still very much a conflict and a debate around many households in Trinidad and Tobago, simply because the Commissioner of Police sat right here and spoke to me about a month ago and said that after each SOE, we see this natural uptick in crime. Maybe not the upsurge, maybe the word that he used, but you get my point.
Yes.
We see a rise in homicides and a rise in crime. How confident are you that post this SOE, the country going through this, what I like to term sacrifice, that there will be some measure of safety and success post SOE, that we wouldn't have to go back to seeing front pages of homicides and murders and home invasions, that fatal home invasions at that?
Again, excellent question, Ryan. And what I can say at this time is that while the SOE is unfolding and we are utilizing the additional powers, there's a lot of thinking and there's a lot of restructuring, a lot of strategies that have been put in place to ensure that subsequent to the SOE, that there's proper systems and structures to be able to continue to sustain all law enforcement efforts. Because you're right, whether it's 3 months, whether it's 6 months, whether it will come to an end at some point in time. So any sensible and intelligent and proactive thinking will definitely be looking into the direction of putting systems in place to be able to deal with gangs. And that issue of gangs have been a very troubled area for us. So I think the opportunity now with the suppression that we are employing, that is important for us to develop those strategies to be able to disrupt and dismantle, which is the critical area. I've said it 3 times this morning because it is very, very important.
Let's move to stand your ground legislation. Does the stand your ground legislation proposal keep you up at night as a legal officer in the TTPS?
It definitely did, and not only at night, Ryan, just before coming into this room. I had a quick glimpse at that particular legislation. And I think it's a very sensitive but interesting legislation. And, permit me this morning, to make 1 or 2 very strong calls as an attorney who has a responsibility to assist in the reform or the development of the law. Permit me this morning just to make 3 salient points. But I don't know whether you had a follow-up question before I do that.
Please.
A lot of commentary has been given to that particular piece of legislation. The first thing I want to do, Ryan, is to, acknowledge the government's position to use the rule of law to assist in protecting the citizens of Trinidad and Tobago. And what excites me further is the fact that it has a referendum resemblance in terms of encouraging the citizens of Trinidad and Tobago to participate in the lawmaking process. So I just want to identify that at the very outset. But I think that this legislation, the discussions, respectfully, I think the first thing I'd like to identify is that the Director of Public Prosecutions should be factored into this legislation so that you're placing greater protection for an occupant of a dwelling house who utilizes this legislation when it comes into law to defend his property or defend himself or members of that particular household. You want to ensure there's an independent office, there's a check and balance to ensure that persons are not, and person meaning the TTPS, do not run to charge persons who are utilizing this legislation, but put it in the hands of the DPP to give that consent. So that's number one. Number two, very, very critical. I think that this, if it comes into law, it should be attracting a sunset clause or a provision that will call for a review within 18 months of this legislation. Because this legislation, you do not know how it will be applied, how it will be utilized. It's important for the legislators to be taking a very responsible position to say, okay, in 18 months, we'll review it to see whether we need to make an adjustment, whether we need to take it off the law books. So I think that's a very significant matter in terms of a sunset clause or a review provision. And finally, I think that with looking at the legislation, you are seeing a need for a proclamation after it's assented by the Parliament. I think that period is a critical area for us to continue to encourage education, because it's a new piece of legislation. It's a sensitive legislation. And I think that the average citizen must be given sufficient time to be able to absorb and understand the working of this particular legislation. So I just want to stay there for now with these three submissions. I think that it will enhance the legislation, but I welcome using the rule of law to assist in fighting crime and criminality.
Those are three incredibly important points that you've raised. Have you seen the willingness and how critical is it that the government of this country, they're having public consultations in every constituency?
Yes.
How critical is it that they come to the constituency of the police service and sit down with the police service and have the conversation that you're having with me this morning?
I think that's a proactive thinking, Ryan. I think that when we are speaking about consultation, every stakeholder should be engaged. And if you have the primary law enforcement body who will be called upon to enforce this legislation, I think that good sense should prevail and there should be some level of engagement. Maybe there's some level of engagement with the upper echelon of the TTPS, but I think it's important to engage the TTPS. But may I reciprocate it? That if the TTPS are also seeing the legislation in my respectful view, I think that, and perhaps, with your question this morning, perhaps I may respectfully, bring it to the attention of the upper echelon of the TTPS to say, okay, here's a bill that is being debated in the public domain. We have an interest in this particular legislation, and perhaps we as well can create a policy paper or a contribution, maybe individually or collectively, to be able to contribute to the conversation.
Let's talk about Stand Your Ground in a different context now. Over the last 2 nights, there was a public consultation in Urupuch East, and the issue of domestic violence came up. This cannot be easy. You were talking about the Director of Public Prosecutions and his potential role in the Stand Your Ground legislation. You cannot divorce domestic violence and that issue that is quite rampant in our country, by the way,
yes,
from the issue of the Stand Your Ground legislation. Because if let's just take a household, for example, a man and a woman has access to a firearm user's license and they have a firearm, and there is a dispute, a domestic dispute, but the firearm really is for outside intruders. How do you stop a woman from protecting herself or defending herself with a firearm? You see the gray area that I'm talking about here, Mr. Ali.
Yes, and Ryan, you're so pointed this morning, and that issue of domestic violence, and let's look at it in the context of the legislation, may I say at the very outset that if you look at the definition section of the bill, you'll see exactly how a home invader is defined. If you go a little bit lower into the legislation, you'll see in the area of exception in the marginal notes, you'll see clearly a person who has the legitimacy to be in the dwelling house. In other words, is an occupant of the dwelling house. So why am I saying those two things? Mm-hmm. I'm saying it to immediately indicate that when we are speaking about domestic violence, we are speaking of persons in a relationship that is properly defined under the Domestic Violence Act. So when we're speaking about stand your ground and home invasion, in my respectful view, domestic violence is not within that context.
And I get that, but Mr. Ali, with all due respect, how do you tell a woman who is being choked or physically harmed, or and vice versa, I mean, but I'm just using a woman as an example. But how do you tell that woman not to defend herself, but perhaps the only means that she has to defend herself in that context, if she's locked in? You get where I'm going with this?
Yeah, most certainly. And this is where now I'll give you where there's a general defense, self-defense, where there's the criminal law act in terms of use of force. So the stand your ground speaks specifically about home invasion. But if someone in a domestic violence situation, as you indicated, is seeing imminent threat to life, death, that person in law under the Criminal Law Act Section 4 and also under the principles of self-defense can take the necessary action to be able to preserve life and limb. So I want us to just divorce it a little bit. So you're looking at stand your ground for specific persons where they are defined as persons who are a home invader. But someone who has the legitimacy to be in the home but is seeing a situation of domestic violence and their life is threatened, the Criminal Law Act as it stands and the general principles of self-defense will be factored in those circumstances.
So you are saying that they will have a legal case that could stand up in court?
Most certainly, Ryan. And you see, those are why I'm saying that I acknowledge and was encouraged by the consultation because of those same very, very nagging issues that needs to be fleshed out properly so that the citizen is clearly aware that stand your ground is not to be factored in a domestic situation where the person who is using the force or the person against whom the force is used has a legitimacy to be in that particular dwelling house.
All right, Mr. Ali, always appreciate you and the TTPS for showing up and answering the questions at Trinidad and Tobago. It's not easy, the job you do, but we appreciate you coming on the program.
Thank you very much for having me, Ryan, and an excellent line of questioning. I thought for a moment, I'm in an interrogation.
Absolutely not. And please pass on my apologies to the Commissioner for raising your rank without his permission.
Well, I hope he listens to you, Ryan.
Let's take a break here on the Morning Brew. We'll be right back.
At Bagwansing's, Port of Spain and Chaguanas, we are committed to providing quality products for all major building projects. Let's build together with rebars and beams, BRC coils and mats, RHS and angles, roofing sheets and purlins, lumber, plywood and MDF. Bagwansing's, building homes, building communities, building TNT for over 60 years. Bagwansing's, Port of Spain and Chaguanas, building value every day.
Food Basket, nation's #1 supermarket, bakery, restaurant, meat market, fresh produce and everything fantastic. For everyday low price, things real nice. Come in once, but to come back twice. Wholesale, retail, everything for you. A remush, I wanna shop for you. Food Basket, the nation's #1 supermarket, bakery, restaurant, meat market, fresh produce and everything fantastic. Food Basket, Marketplace Chaguanas, where shopping is a pleasure and the price is right.
Loving the flavors you get with Tetley. Loving the flavors you get with Tetley.
Wouldn't you just love a cup of Tetley tea right now? Dark, strong British blend to give you a good morning boost. Or Tetley decaf, all of the antioxidants, none of the caffeine. Losing weight or staying healthy your thing? Try Tetley green tea. Get the vitamins to boost your health with Tetley super teas. Or calm down with Tetley chamomile. Wouldn't you just love a cup of Tetley tea right now? Tetley, a tea for everyone.
Loving the flavors you get with Tetley, a tea for everyone. Tetley tea.
Distributed by AMCO, a subsidiary of Ansa Macau.
Eye care tips for Seaview Optical. Eat well. Good eye health starts with the food on your plate. Nutrients like omega-3 fatty acids, lutein, zinc, and vitamin C and E might help ward off age-related vision problems. Quit smoking. Makes you more likely to get cataracts, damage to your optic nerve, and macular degeneration. If you have tried to kick the habit before only to start again, keep at it. Wear sunglasses. The right pair of shades will help protect your eyes from the sun's ultraviolet UV rays. Use safety eyewear. If you use hazardous or airborne materials on the job or at home, wear safety glasses or protective goggles.
Get the best and affordable eyewear. Frames with blue filter lenses and eye exam, $399. Single vision lenses with transitions on designer frames, $799. Progressive transitions with designer frames, $1,399. Happening only at Seaview Optical. Affordable eye care for everyone.
This is Mary. Mary has bills to pay and takes a chance parking in front of the building at the no parking sign. Mary returns to her car and this is what happens. Mary decides to call when she's 5 minutes away to let her daughter know that she is close by. But Mary forgot one thing.
Second ticket for the day. I don't know, nah? I really don't know. Well, I tell you.
After 2 tickets, Mary just isn't paying attention to her speed.
You see a fixed penalty notice, fixing speed like 15 kilometers. You have 30 years to pay, 15 years to contest.
It has showed other people. Look at other people passing. All they ain't seen them. All they seen me, right? Eh? All they too wicked.
Don't be like Mary. Obey the laws of the road. A message from the TTPS.
Welcome back to the Morning Brew, everyone. Really riveting conversation, important conversation with Trinidad and Tobago Police Service Legal Officer Zahir Ali in the last segment of the program, calling for a sunset clause when it comes to the Stand Your Ground legislation. Let's move the program along now. I want to welcome to the program Gino McCoy this morning. Gino, welcome back to the program and welcome back to Trinidad, my friend. Happy to have you here.
Happy to be here. Thank you so much for having me on the program.
When was the last time were you in Trinidad?
17 years.
17 years ago. Of course, Gino moved to Canada. So tell us what you've been up to on your trip back home to Trinidad, Gino.
Well, you know, I came back primarily to work with the government to revamp and revitalize the film and TV sector. For Trinidad and Tobago, and as you know, we have a filming center, but for the past decade or so, the film and TV sector hasn't gotten any of the Hollywood films or major films coming to Trinidad and Tobago. So I've come down to work with the ministers and the government and to revamp this filming center, to make our filming center probably one of the top 3 filming centers in the world. And we're working on that because, over the next 5 years, we're hoping to bring so much film and TV series to Trinidad and Tobago that will, create anywhere between 75 to 100,000 jobs, direct and indirect jobs for Trinidad and Tobago or more, and, bring in over $1 billion in revenue to the local economy, as well as, building a film studio and so much other things that goes with that. But, we have to be competitive. You have Saudi Arabia, Morocco, Malta, Canada, the UK, so many other countries that are very competitive when it comes to bringing films, and bringing filming and producers in Hollywood and other films to their country.
One of the top 3 film countries in the world, some people might say, Gino, that's a really ambitious goal. Why do you think Trinidad and Tobago has all of the ingredients to achieve that?
Because we have a very talented film and TV sector, both from the diaspora and also locally. But they're not being given the opportunity really in the films to work on. Also, the cash rebate on film right now is at 55% Trinidad, but it's not on all spend like other countries like Saudi Arabia, Morocco, and like the UK and Malta. Those countries have, capitalized on, smaller rebates, like at 40% and 50% and everything else, and they've made billions in terms of bringing billions to the revenue and foreign exchange to the economy. And that's something that we hope to do in Trinidad. And I believe we could do it because, we have not only the skilled workers in the diaspora like myself that want to come back to do films and to help the film sector, but also locally we have, students from UTT and UWI and so forth that, graduate but they don't have any jobs.
Let's talk about the infrastructure, though, because if you're going to have a film industry and it's such an ambitious goal, you really have to have the infrastructure. Do you feel that we have the infrastructure in this country to really take it as international as you'd like to see it?
Yes, we do. We have temporary infrastructure. For example, we're going to be building a studio. That's one of the things we're talking about. But, in the meantime, there are big warehouse spaces and stuff like that we could convert to sound stages to shoot indoors, But at the same time, you're looking at Dominican Republic that has a water stage from Pinewood. And they brought in, close to $500 million, in the last 3 to 4 years just with a water stage. And, they don't have, all of the big infrastructure like you would get in Canada, Malta and these other places. We're planning to, add a water stage and a regular stage and everything else. That will help with, shooting interiors and stuff like that during rainy season and everything else. But our landscape is conducive to shooting so many different films that they need, that they have shot in Malta and they've shot in Dominican Republic.
Gino, I want you to stay with me. I want you to stay with me. I have to head to the 7 a.m. news. That's mandatory. And when we come back, I want to talk about your new sci-fi film, Lumina. But stay with me throughout the news. And when we come back, we'll talk about your sci-fi film, Lumina. Let's take a break right now. We'll be right back.
A very good morning. I'm Akash Samaru with headline news on CNC3 and the TBC radio network. Former Attorney General Faris Al-Rawi is warning that Trinidad and Tobago's extradition relationship with the U.S. could be at risk as he raised concerns over the handling of the ongoing extradition case involving former FIFA Vice President Jack Warner. Al-Rawi says as AG, he signed multiple extradition orders during his tenure and is seeking clarity on the extra documents Warner's lawyers are now demanding. He warns this could set a precedent for others to challenge their extraditions to the U.S. On August 5th, it was announced that AG John Jeremy will be launching a probe into how his predecessors handled the extradition request for Jack Warner. This followed claims from Warner's legal team that a key document detailing his charges could not be found and may never have existed. Al-Rawi cited an affidavit from an ex-Central Authority head, Graham McLean, stating no extra documentation was needed under the US-TNT extradition treaty. Al-Rawi added that a U.S. diplomatic note already assures Warner won't face charges beyond those listed in the extradition order, which was Warner's legal team's chief concern.
He will not, until he has left or has been free to leave the United States, be detained, prosecuted, or punished for any offense committed before his return, other than A, the offenses for which he was extradited, B, any lesser offenses proved by the facts proved before a magistrate on the extradition proceedings leading to his return, or C, or any other offenses being an extradition offense for which the Attorney General of the Republic of Trinidad and Tobago may consent to his being so dealt with.
For the next few days, medical staff of the U.S. Navy Mercy Class Hospital, the USNS Comfort, will provide free medical care to citizens. The floating hospital docked in Port of Spain on Tuesday, and from yesterday, citizens visited the clinic site at the National Academy for the Performing Arts to benefit from their services. The Comfort team will work alongside local medical professionals to provide medical care for children and adults, including dental, optometry, women's health, and more. During a tour of the 4-story ship yesterday, Associate Director of Nursing Services, Lieutenant George Menninger, revealed that during their humanitarian missions, optometry and dental care are usually the most requested.
I will say that a bulk of our patients are for vision, so prescription glasses, and that's because we can rapidly see them. So that's a very huge need. Again, 40% of the population. And then just outside of that, the adult medicine is just everything from checkups to, medications that they would need potentially for blood pressure.
And days after he died in his sleep, the president led a distinguished gathering of colleagues, families and friends who came out to say farewell to Dirup Timal. Timal is being remembered as an exemplar of a man who was serving as an independent senator and president of the National Council for Indian Culture when he died. Opposition Senator Dr. Amory Brown said there was consensus that he was a man of substance and grace whose diplomatic gifts were cherished in the Senate.
Even under fire, even when disrespected and denigrated by those unworthy to touch the buckle of his sandals, he always maintained a quiet sense of dignity.
Well, those were your 7 a.m. news headlines. We'll have another news update at 8 a.m. on the TBC Radio Network.
Welcome back to the second hour of the Morning Brew. We're talking to Gino McCoy, who is a film director. We'll be talking about Lumina, his sci-fi film, in a short bit. But coming up also in this second hour will be the morning shot at the bottom of the hour with Ian Wason. So stay with us for that as well. Gino, thank you very much for hanging on throughout the news. We appreciate it because I do want to continue with this conversation. Tell me a little bit about Lumina that premiered on Sci-Fi.
Well, Lumina came out last year, and we shot the movie during COVID in 2020-2021, which was probably one of the most difficult periods to ever shoot a movie in cinema history. And, once we completed it and everything else, I shot in Morocco, actually. And, it's a film about a guy who loses his girlfriend, Tail, in abduction, and he goes in search of her and stuff like that. So it's a really wild story. It's sci-fi comedy, it's really tongue-in-cheek, but at the same time it deals with topics that a lot of people are talking in the news right now in the United States and Canada. It was released last year theatrically in the United States and Canada, and then released internationally.
And it's the first
coming to Trinidad
film
later this year.
Yeah, it's also the first film to be shot entirely in Morocco, and the largest set, as I understand it, built in Africa. Did you plan it this way, or did it just? Set. Yeah, and
yes, largest sci-fi set.
Did you plan it this way, or did it just happen?
It just happened because they don't go to the Caribbean, Africa, South America, and other places like this to shoot sci-fi. They go traditionally to, the white European countries like, Australia, New Zealand, Canada, the US to shoot science fiction movies. I took the risk to shoot in Morocco because of the variety of landscapes and everything that they have, the desert, everything else. And we didn't intend it to be built so big, but it was, and it ended up being the largest interior science fiction sets ever built on the continent. Only the exterior sets, the biggest exterior science fiction sets ever built in Africa was in Tunisia with George Lucas and Star Wars. Our sets were the largest interior sets ever built on the continent. It was also the first science fiction movie ever shot entirely on the African continent, because they've only shot partial stuff in Africa for science fiction. Like only a few films did that, but we shot entirely in Africa, in Morocco. So I created history with that, and the first, Trinidadian Canadian citizen director that, was able to do something like that in the history of the continent.
You know, you have a series of firsts as well, Gino. You've broken into Hollywood and you've come from this small island. How have you managed, to make that jump? And what are some of the challenges, and I'm sure there are many, that you would have encountered along the way to make it to the international stage?
It was, you know what? I went out to Hollywood initially to do music, to sign Universal Records. And when I went there, basically, 16 years ago, they wanted to change my entire musical style, and I decided I didn't want to do that. I decided to stay independent instead of signing with the labels because they're trying to alter my musical style and everything. I didn't want to give up my creative control. And, I had to figure out a way to get my music into into a good space, be marketed properly and find a vehicle to market the music. And I decided to write feature films, and I was the first person in Hollywood to write about the deep web and Bitcoin in 2010, 2011, and I consulted with the FBI on that. And, from there, I just started, in the film industry. And it's very tough because, there's a lot of racial discrimination and in Hollywood. You're not just given stuff. Nothing was ever given to me. I had to work hard for everything we have. People eventually started to see my creativity. I started to work with a lot of different filmmakers and in developing projects. And that's how I got, close to a lot of, filmmakers that have done a lot of big films and, crew, friends of mine that work for Steven Spielberg and all the other big studios and directors. And I learned a lot because, I had a lot of big directors that, spoke to me and talked to me about and mentored me throughout because of my writing, especially my writing. They're attracted to my scripts and stuff like that because I was talking about stuff that nobody ever talked about.
Yeah.
And, on came Lumina, and now I have Revolutionary, which is, based on a true story of a Trinidadian that goes to the United States and creates history. And that's the film that we want to shoot in Trinidad.
Right.
And a slate of films to shoot in Trinidad, a lot of big films, that Hollywood are very high on. And, they want this type of content from Trinidadian content that we have. And finally, I'm putting it in a medium, in a space that basically is very commercial and they like it. So that's the reason, one of the other reasons why I came back to work with the government to revitalize the film sector, because, we have to build the infrastructure on top of the existing infrastructure that we have. And there's too much people in the industry that haven't worked for a decade and haven't gotten, really good projects. And it's sad because, we come from a very, very creative country. And we have a very rich history in terms of our nation. And those topics and those icons that we have need to be explored and need to be shown on a worldwide medium. And that's the reason why I'm back here working with the government, trying to get them to see the light, to put money to infrastructure, to revitalize this film incentive that will bring, Hollywood back to Trinidad, because Hollywood hasn't been in Trinidad since the 60s, since the golden era of Calypso.
Well, we're hoping, Gino, that you will be able to do just that. Welcome back to Trinidad. Thank you very much for taking the time to be on the program. Appreciate it. Gino McCoy, film director, talking to us here on The Morning Brew with some real, great plans for the film industry in Trinidad and Tobago. Certainly, the potential is there here in Trinidad and Tobago. Before we head to this break, let's bring you some news that's happening just this morning. It happened overnight, but we're just learning of it. The Port of Spain City Corporation, in the dead of night, as we understand it, has removed the Christopher Columbus statue that has been under great controversy over the last few years. We understand that the Port of Spain City Corporation, by way of their Facebook page, announced this morning that following extensive discussions, the Christopher Columbus statue was removed from 10 p.m. last night. This is a statement, and I'm going to read it verbatim. Following extensive discussions and technical assessment, the Port of Spain City Corporation successfully removed the Christopher Columbus statue last night from Independence Square. The exercise commenced at approximately 10 p.m. to minimize traffic disruption in the capital city. The exercise was planned following an on-site technical assessment and further consultation on August 5th at Ethelbert Telepole Council Chamber at City Hall. It was determined that the statue should be removed first, followed by the remaining parts of the monument. The discussions included representatives from several key stakeholder organizations, including the Santa Rosa First Peoples Community, Waro First People, the Caribbean Freedom Project, etc. That will now head to the Heritage. As just quickly before we head to this break, it's an interesting development in a story that has had both sides, for and against, and differing views. It's not been a unanimous decision to pull down the statue, and certainly the Port of Spain City Corporation's decision to remove it at 10 p.m. on the night of August 6th is one that we will have to assess in the coming hours and the coming days. And really, when you talk about traffic disruption, that's one thing, because the Port of Spain City Corporation doesn't factor in traffic disruption when it's fixing the city's roads. So it's something that we will have to discuss both here and on different platforms in the coming days. Let's take a break here on The Morning Brew. When we come back, it's our weekly Mental Health Matters segment. We'll see what Yohansi Ayadike has for us next.
Gaming Express Limited is a premium importer and retailer of the highest quality brand name electronics. We stock the widest range of PlayStation, Nintendo Switch, Samsung, and Apple devices and accessories. Visit us at Shop 52, Level 2, Gulf City Mall in San Fernando, or contact us by phone or WhatsApp message at 687-7480 or 301-9797 or 798-1280. Like our Facebook and Instagram pages for updates on products and services. We are your one-stop, most convenient, most helpful, most caring community pharmacy. Our pharmaceutical services include dispensing medicines, repeat dispensing, clinical governance, but we also have a fully stocked convenience store featuring our refreshment aisle, grocery lane, personal care products, toys, pet supplies. We are most conveniently located out of the traffic, just 2 minutes off the highway in Heartland Plaza in Deba Chaguanas. Contact us on 220-8705 or 470-5938 and visit us soon.
Welcome to Roystonia Muse. If you're in the market for a chic living space or investment property, our units at Roystonia Muse can fit your needs. These properties are sleek, well-engineered, and beautifully constructed, with a layout that offers lots of space and natural light. With 3 bedrooms and 2.5 baths and over 1,700 square foot of living space, units start at just $1.85 million. Take this step to acquiring your piece of this beautiful community. Let us welcome you to your forever home.
The detergent smells nice while washing, but when you use the new Downy Intense fabric softener, with its new multi-capsule fragrance, it releases an intense scent that lasts twice as long. With the new Downy Intense, you'll enjoy a rich and delightful fragrance that keeps you feeling fresh 24/7.
Get the best in affordable eyewear. Frames with blue filter lenses and eye exam, $399. Single vision lenses with transitions on designer frames, $799. Progressive transitions with designer frames, $1,399. Happening only at Seaview Optical. Affordable eye care for everyone.
This morning on Mental Health Matters, we're asking a question to Yohansi Ayadike, or rather he's going to throw it back at me and you. Welcome to the program, Yohansi, and we're going to start by asking you, is life fair?
Good morning to everyone. Morning, actually. Is you all supposed to be answering that?
If I had to answer the question, I would certainly say life is not fair for everybody.
Correct. And the thing is, I don't think life is fair for anyone. But I often hear people say and complain about life not being fair. In one breath, they would say, I guess sometimes to console people. Well, life is not fair, but when it comes to them, they want things to be fair. And I'm putting this out because we all have preferences. Let me ask you a question, Ryan. Mm-hmm. Do you like everyone?
No, I don't.
Right.
And not everyone likes me.
Correct. And what you just said there, many people can't accept that fact. Right? And then when you expect people to treat you the way that you think you should be always treated, and then when it doesn't happen, sometimes it causes mental distress. No, I'm not condoning abuse. I'm not condoning any systematic discrimination or prejudice against any people for or race or any preferences. But understanding that people, organizations, companies, etc., they have preferences. And if you don't meet it, doesn't mean, one, that something is wrong with you, but two, that it doesn't mean that life is unfair to you.
Let's stick on that first point. It doesn't mean that something is wrong with you, because oftentimes when something happens, if we don't get that job, if somebody that we think isn't better for the promotion but gets the promotion, we think that something is wrong with us. How do we deal, Johansi, with that mental distress of feeling that we're not good enough?
One, coming back to what we said at the beginning of the segment, which is you don't like everybody and everybody don't like you, which means that everything is not for you, and life, remember that life is not fair. Think about life as, not trivializing it, but think about it as a game. You dealt a hand, you're not sure what the hand is, but whatever you get, you have to make the most of. And I could give an example with a previous guest. He said that he went away to do music, and they tried to change his music. Now, he could have felt in that moment, life is not fair, people don't like me, woe is me, etc. But he decided to go a different path, and he used the hand that he had to make the most of what he was given.
Also, how we react to life not being fair, and what you just said, the setbacks that we all face, that we may not have gotten the job that we applied for, somebody else who we deem should not have gotten it, probably got it. Those challenges, how we respond to it, Johansi, is also key.
Yes, and facing reality is an important part. And facing reality is being truthful. Not facing reality is actually a lie, because you're pretending something don't exist. It would be nice if you got the job. It would be nice if the person you like you back. It would be nice if your family members treated you the way you thought you should be treated. But accepting the reality of the situation helps you come up with strategies to be able to move forward in a healthy manner.
I'm listening to you speak, Johansi, but I think a critical part of this as well is how we raise and develop our children. This isn't a conversation that we should be having at our age. It's a conversation we should be developing our children to have, that life isn't always fair. Things will not always go the way that you want it to go, and how you react to it really will decide your character as a person, one, but also how you move ahead in life.
Ryan, perfect. You read my mind with this, because that concept of fear, F-A-I-R, comes from how you were brought up. And I would say more within the last maybe 20 years to 25 years, the parents who were born in the 70s and the 80s, they have this concept of, I will give my child everything I did have, but they don't give them the work. So what you do is you create a concept where I think the child thinks that they could get a lot of things for minimal work. And then when they don't, they think life is not fair. So you're correct. We're setting the base level of what is fair and what is not comes from the environment the child grows up in.
Somebody cut that clip and make that clip viral. That's a really, really important point that you just made. I do like to bring in the current affairs and the news that I cover into our conversations. And I do want to bring up what will become Johansi. You and I are talking about it here first. But this, I promise you, is going to be a topic that's going to be all over your social media timelines in the next few days. The Christopher Columbus statue has caused a division, and we don't need very decisive topics to be divided in this country. The Christopher Columbus statue came down overnight in Port of Spain. This is a statue that has caused a divide in our country, with many for the Christopher Columbus statue coming down and others against it, saying that you can't erase history. What would you say to both sides of the divide, who may be mentally distressing over something that really sometimes they pass once or twice a day at?
One, and this sometimes is a very hard pill to swallow, is that change is inevitable. Change has no judgment, so it's not necessarily negative change is inevitable or positive change. There's change in general. There are things in the country that we have changed name. I remember growing up, going to King George Fifth Park, and that's what I accustomed to. And then when it was changed to Nelson Mandela, some people liked it, some people didn't like it, but change is inevitable. And based on what you're saying, I have to do some more research to understand why the statue was moved. But whoever or whichever organization made the decision, those people who are against it also should petition to them. So there's a process if you disagree with something in any country to go forward towards that. But in terms of a divide, understanding, to be honest, change is inevitable. And if you don't like the change, sometimes you can't fight it. But if there's a process or judicial process or bureaucratic process, then you utilize that.
I like that point that you made, and I think it's one that I don't want just slipped under our conversation. I do want to amplify it a little bit, trying to understand the perspective of the other side of the divide. That's something that we don't do very often as human beings, not just in Trinidad and Tobago. As human beings, we tend to agree with only ourselves and our perspective, but listening and trying, at least making an effort to listen, Johansi, to what the other side has to say and trying to understand it from their perspective is also key.
Yes, it is. And you may not even like it. Sometimes people just want their way, and I didn't really want to hear the other side. But pretending that the other side's opinion don't exist also will create chaos. Again, you don't have to like it, you don't have to agree with it, but it does exist and therefore has to be addressed.
The smart people say agree to disagree. Johansi, appreciate you being on the program as always. I always look forward to this.
Ryan, thank you very much. Enjoy your day, and everyone viewing, enjoy your day.
Johansi Ayadike, behavioral change consultant, on us with the Morning Brew here today. Let's take a break here on the Brew. When we come back, we'll check in with Jean-Marc on the weather. It's been a rainy start to Thursday in Trinidad, and then we have Ian Wason coming up with the morning shot thereafter. Stay with us.
This Java bring the whole family to La Vega Estate, Trinidad's #1 family-friendly destination, open daily, including weekends and public holidays. La Vega is more than Trinidad's leading garden center. It's packed with fun for everyone. New this season, thrilling ATV tours for the adventure seekers, plus 2 large pools, fishing, nature trails, playgrounds, and more. Camp under the night sky. Make a booking for an unforgettable family getaway. Call or WhatsApp 714-5969 to plan your next adventure today.
Food Basket. Food Basket, nation's #1 supermarket, bakery, restaurant, meat market, fresh producers, everything fantastic for everyday low price. Things real nice. Come in once, but to come back twice. Wholesale retail, everything for you. A remush, I wanna shop for view. Food Basket, the nation's #1 supermarket, bakery, restaurant, meat market, fresh producers, everything fantastic. Food Basket, Marketplace Gulfview, where shopping is a pleasure and the price is right.
Get the best in affordable eyewear. Frames with blue filter lenses and eye exam, $399. Single vision lenses with transitions on designer frames, $799. Progressive transitions with designer frames, $1,399. Happening only at Seaview Optical. Affordable eye care for everyone.
Welcome to ABC Doors and Windows, TNT's #1 destination for the best quality and widest variety of doors and windows. Enhance your space with our premium wooden, steel panels, fiberglass, and steel security doors, complemented by our aluminum, UPVC, and steel windows. Shop for the best quality and service at ABC Doors and Windows. Visit our impressive showroom at 1 Chancatrace, El Socorro South, or call 638-7184 to get started. Trust ABC for a better choice.
Welcome back to the Brew. Let's check in with Jean-Marc for the World Weather App.
Good morning. In today's weather app, we first head over to Australia, where a new report reveals that their Great Barrier Reef suffered its worst year on record in 2024, experiencing its largest single-year decline in hard coral over the last 39 years of monitoring. The devastation was caused by a marine heat wave combined with an El Niño weather pattern, which led to a mass coral bleaching event. This is where stressed corals expel their algae and lose their color. According to the Australian Institute of Marine Science, the reef lost between a quarter to a third of its hard coral, with some areas seeing losses up to 70%. The event had the largest spatial footprint ever recorded on the reef and was especially discouraging after a recent period of recovery. The report warns that the reef may reach a point from which it cannot recover, leading to a loss of biodiversity and threatening the species that depend on it. Activists are now urging leaders to take immediate action to reduce emissions to protect this natural wonder. Now back in the United States, the Bear Gulch fire in Washington state, that's in the northwestern US, has grown to around 5,000 acres. Rain is expected to help slow it down over the next few days, but not completely stop it. This fire has been burning for just about a month now, and investigators don't know exactly what sparked it, but they believe it was caused by human activity. So far, 30 homes have been evacuated. Trails and campgrounds in Olympic National Park have also had to close. Now let's take a look at our local weather forecast for today, where we can expect a rainy start to the day with scattered showers and isolated thunderstorms. This activity is expected to continue into the afternoon, but then gradually settle by the evening. Now, relatively unstable conditions can be expected for the remainder of the week, as a low-level trough is expected to pass tomorrow, and then some localized thunderstorms over the weekend. I'm also tracking the progress of a strong tropical wave out in the central Atlantic, so be sure to follow my updates throughout the day. That's all for today's weather app. Back to you.
And that is all for the Morning Brew. Stay with us, because coming up after the break, Ian Wason takes over with the Morning Shot. Everything that you need to know when it comes to sport in Trinidad and Tobago and the wider world is after this break.